Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing. Made in 1995 in 50 pieces. This is the rose gold version of Audemars Piguet reference 25750, better known as the Grande et Petite Sonnerie. The first series-produced Grande et Petite Sonnerie wristwatch from Audemars Piguet. It followed only about 3 years after Philippe Dufour created the first Sonnerie wristwatch of any kind, so this was a real pioneer. The timepiece is extravagantly built and finished inside and out, but nicely sized. At 39 millimeters in diameter, it would have been huge by the standards of 1995 for a dress watch. Today, it's a nice in-between size. Now, they're too big nor too small. We have a lug-to-lug dimension of 44.9 millimeters. It is 10 millimeters thick. There's a 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. We throw it on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference. And you can see, because it is only 44.9 millimeters from lug to lug, it's small enough that you could wear it on a wrist as small as probably 13.5 centimeters circumference. So this is a watch for him and for her. And it is very thin, sliding easily underneath the dress cuff. And when it ducks out from underneath the cuff, only a few will know exactly what they're looking at. Between the charging horn for the minute repeater, or I should say the quarter repeater, and then the function selector for the Sonnerie system. Let's take a quick look at the hardware and the software. Large rectangular scale alligator leather, black gloss finish, monotone stitch, sheer cut edge, calfskin on the bottom, a brand new Audemars Piguet factory strap, and then there's a small matching rose gold Audemars Piguet pin buckle. You can see how that is constructed simply. Traditional for a dress watch. The case, however, is constructed laboriously, the old school way, wherein the lugs and the case are made separately. The lugs are then inserted into slots in the case, welded on, and then by hand, the material of the weld is removed to create that sharp, creased break between case and lug. And you can see they play it up using a longitudinal satin finish on the case band and vertical satin finish on the flank of the lug. The bezel, the function selector, the crown, and the lug hoods are all of high polish to make a handsome contrast. You can see that the watch has a white, and it is white, not silver dial base, and then lovely baton-style polished rose gold hands, rose gold tri-Arabic numerals, and rose gold baton-style indices, with the exception of one delightful little cabochon down at 6 o'clock. Small seconds. They don't print a tome on the dial. There's very little text. Audemars Piguet and Swiss made. We have a function selector. So silent is currently selected, or you could put it in petite sonnerie mode. What happens when it is in petite mode? Well, what'll happen is it'll chime the hour on the hour and the quarter on the quarter with a double chime, so one chime for the hour, double chime for the quarter, but when it's in petite mode, it will not chime the hours and the quarters consecutively at each quarter. In Grande Sonnerie mode, it will do that. It will chime the hour, and then it will chime, for example, 1, 2, 3, and then a double chime for 1 quarter, or 2 double chimes for 2 quarters, or 3 double chimes for 3 quarters. So I'll demonstrate how this works. Quick note, this is a manual wind watch with a 48-hour power reserve. Leaving the striking system on will draw down the power reserve. And unlike most repeating systems that use a lever to charge a separate strike barrel, when you press this button, it's just like the Zeitwerk minute repeater that would come around a generation later. You're actually activating the power supply from the mainspring barrel, so if you keep operating the quarter repeater and you leave the chiming system active, it will eventually drain the mainspring. So if you leave it in any sonnerie mode, you want to wind it at the same time every day, because you will not get 48 hours of power reserve if you're operating the chiming. And remember, the sonnerie system operates automatically. Once it's told to operate, every single quarter and on the hour, you're going to hear it. So what's underneath the caseback? Well, first let's talk about the caseback. This is a mid-D series watch from 1995. It's about D55,000 for Audemars Piguet fans. You know that alphanumeric AP serial numbers were sequential right up until very recently, so you could date the watch on that basis alone. Everything on the caseback, with the exception of the hallmarks, has been hand engraved, so it's exquisitely handmade in that regard. There's a lovely circular concentric pattern. You can see it's part of a series out of 50. It has the 1995 and earlier Helvetic head rather than the 1995 and later diamond stamp with a dog's head. So in 1995, there was a crossover in the second half of the year when the new Swiss hallmarks were introduced. I believe that these watches were made in 95. The caseback and case components were actually made before the changeover, which is why they have the earlier hallmarks on them. We have Audemars Piguet manufacturer manual wind caliber 2868 made by Audemars Piguet Renault et Papy, which is the ultra haute de gamme branch of Audemars Piguet. It is a manual wind. It does have that 48-hour power reserve we talked about, 21,600 vibration per hour beat rate, so 6 beats per second. Pivots on 51 joules. It is 5-position adjusted. All of this water resistant to 0 meters. It is protected against dust intrusion only because old school minute repeater design dictates that there be as little as possible to stop the transmission of sound from the inside to the outside, so no conventional seals. The movement, though you can't see it, is extravagantly hand finished. So let's operate this system. First, the repeater system. Let me do that again, because sometimes when the watch is turned over, you wind up getting 1 o'clock instead of 12 3/4. So the watch had clearly internally rolled over to 1 p.m. or 1 a.m. So let's do this again. Let's hear what it sounds like. Take note, it is a quarter repeater, not a minute repeater. This is often mistakenly described as a minute repeater online. A quarter repeater, when asked, will yield the hour and the quarters after the hour. So you will not hear the minutes after the quarter. So this was a very early example of a Grande et Petite Sonnerie with a repeater. So it is a quarter repeater. You'll hear the hours and then 3 double chimes for the quarters. Let's hear it now. Just like that. And the reason I waited a moment before setting it again is because you can hear the centrifugal governor that governs the speed of the chimes. As long as it's running, you don't want to attempt to set the watch. So you don't want to set it while it's chiming, and you don't want it to chime while you're setting it. Just keep that in mind. The crown should always be flush to the case when the watch is chiming. Now, of course, you have the ability to set the different modes. Remember, you're going to have to wind it once a day at the same time every day if you do have it in Grande or Petite Sonnerie mode. An unbelievable piece of high horology esoterica. It's not a Royal Oak. It's not a Millenary. It's not a Jules Audemars. It's not a Code 1159. This, instead, is the kind of watch responsible for Audemars Piguet's initial induction to the Holy Trinity. This is the Audemars Piguet I love. Reach out to Tim Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.